Next, we have another child prodigy and another PhD, Sri Prahlada Prabhu. So most of you may know Sri Prahlada Prabhu was a wonderful Kirtaniya. Yes, that's true. He started Kirtan at a very young age, and in fact, he won the contract with world giant recording company EMI even when he was 12, and did an album with them, and it's very internationally renowned Kirtaniya, both in ISKCON as well as in the yoga circles. And we are so fortunate he recently moved to US. So, if he lives in New York now, as you know, he actually Indra Swami says he kidnapped Sri Prahlad when he was in the Gurukul when he was only 15 years old. And I think Maharaj was just when they're at your age, Chaitanya Purushottam's age, Maharaj just said to come with me for a month during the summer. And then he came and then he returned only after 18 years. And after that, was wonderful service. And when he was with Indra Swami, he was doing so many services. One of them was to sing in the Poland Woodstock Festival for hundreds and thousands of people with his unique blend of Kirtan with the rock and reggae bands. And expert in everything he does. And recently, after serving Maharaj for 18 years, he went back to school and got his master's and PhD in organizational management and particularly on compassion. And he has written a lot of books in that area. And after that, he also has written a book on the leadership lessons from the Bhagavad Gita. And so many other books he has written on this other side, which we may not know Sri Prahlada Prabhu to be known for, but he's very popular in the academic circle also, just like Radhika Raman Prabhu is. And yeah, he was a professor in UK, very prestigious, just like Radhika. They share so much in common. And I think now came to US to actually preach more and cultivate devotees more with things, working on a few innovative ideas to take it to the next level in US. So we'll hear more about that maybe in a few months. But with that introduction, we want to welcome Sri Prahlada Prabhu to McAllen.
Hare Krishna. So Radhika was speaking earlier about hard act to follow. That's how I'm feeling right now. Regarding time, when it came to the time I was thinking, I think I'm supposed to speak now. But then I thought, well, it was like you were speaking, you were so convincing and so powerful. I thought, no, I must have got it wrong. He's supposed to speak until 11:30. Okay, so I asked Govinda for a topic yesterday when he told me he was giving the class, that he mentioned community. So I'll speak about community, and I think I'll speak from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But before I do that, I'll ask to speak some kirtan as well. So we'll begin with a little kirtan, bhajan specifically I was asking for, and then we'll speak about community, discussing the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's 4 stories. Fourth canto, 4 stories, depending on time. There's the Daksha Yagna. You can think about that in relation to community. There's Uttanapada Maharaj and Dhruva. There's Prithu and Vena. And finally, there are the Prachetas, their father, Prachinabhayani. So that's what we will discuss, but first, a little chanting. Yasavachena Sanda Praja Paranagara Ogunarayana Nara Yasavachena Sanda Praja Paranagara Ogunarayana Nara Prahlada
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki.
Hey Krishna, a quick update on the schedule. So now it's 11:30. So Shri Prahlada will speak till 12:30, and we'll have lunch at 12:30, and then at 1:30 we'll leave for the South Padali Beach.
Joy.
Rain or shine.
Yeah, that's all that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Today we are speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. We will be discussing this canto in relation to the topic of spiritual community. As I stated earlier, we will discuss it in relation to 4 stories. The first being Daksha Yagna. Second, Dhruv Karita or Dhruv story. Then we will discuss Pitu Maharaj and Veda, and finally the Prachetas and Vajina Bhakti. Why this chapter? Why this canto to discuss community? This canto centers a lot around families, and we get contrasts in these families. Lots of tension, classic, right? Lots of complexity and challenges that require moral reasoning, ethical reasoning, and spiritual reasoning within the context of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so we'll be discussing family. That's one of the units of a larger community. These families that we discussed are not just any families, they are rulers, they are kings, they are leaders in their communities. So what they do in their families have implications for the wider society, for the wider community as well. So Daksha Yagna, a very famous story. It's the glorious occasion. The world is enlivened that the great Daksha is going to perform a sacrifice. And so sages come from everywhere, kings come from everywhere, rishis, demigods come to be part of this yajna. It is the event that it's not to be missed. Nobody wants to be absent from this yajna. In today's language, we have an acronym, FOMO. Some of you are smiling. You know what FOMO means. Others of you are a little perplexed. What is FOMO?
Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out. This was the yajna that no one wants to miss out from. And when, why? It is a religious ceremony. So this is the first lesson that we can take when we discuss community. There needs to be a center, something that brings everyone together. We are being brought together here over these few days, and there is a center that is Srila Prabhupada. There is a center that is Krishna. We are identified as Vaishnavas or a Vaishnava community in Srila Prabhupada's family. And so that unites us, that brings us together. There is a mission that Prabhupada has given, and that is to share Krishna consciousness widely. Prabhupada's given a mission. He's given some strategies to do this as well, in terms of living together communally, to live together in communities, and to raise children in a Krishna conscious environment, to showcase what that can be to the world, peaceful, loving relations between people, a flourishing, opulent environment, close to the land as well was one of Prabhupada's strategies, or one of Prabhupada's purposes and his ways of sharing Krishna consciousness and demonstrating the efficacy of Krishna consciousness to the world. And so that unites us, that brings us together. It is true today, and it was true millions of years ago when Daksha was leading this yajna, this sacrifice. When Daksha entered the assembly, he was resplendent. He was effulgent because he was a very most qualified priest. He's called Daksha, Prabhupada says, because he's expert at sense gratification. Prabhupada might use some other language. But he's also an expert. He's a karmakandi, so he's expert at performing sacrifice to get material results, to get material rewards. And he's recognized for this. When he entered the assembly, everyone stood up to honor him. So that's another thing about community. Good leadership is also important. To lead a community, there needs to be a vision. There needs to be some organization, communication, bringing people together around the purpose, around the mission. So some qualification is required for that. And Daksha, he fulfilled those qualifications. Where this can be undermined is when that leadership is egotistical. And that's what happens in this story. Everyone rose to receive Daksha, except Lord Shiva. All except Lord Shiva. And in Daksha's qualifications, there was also this pride, and he took offense. Particularly because Lord Shiva was also his son-in-law. And so he felt, even if he doesn't respect me as a high priest, even if he doesn't respect my learning, he ought to respect that I am his father-in-law. He should have stood up. We say Lord Shiva was meditating. He was in a trance that he didn't see or know. This is how it happens elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, where a sage is meditating and they don't recognize the presence of someone who ought to be received and respected. So this is a turning point in Bhagavatam stories. And so it was in the case of Daksha. He was already envious of Shiva. And for him, this was an opportunity to publicly humiliate, just see the character of this person. And sometimes when we're angry, we don't just point out the mistake that has happened now, but we pull out our list for a long time. And oh, there it is. You did this on this date. You did such and such, or you said this. And so Daksha pulled out his list. Shiva, he's dirty. He's in the crematorium. He has bad association. He heads out with hobgoblins and ghosts and other such creatures. Even the virtues of Shiva is compassionately giving his mercy to such characters as ghosts and hobgoblins. They became a fault for Daksha. He resented that Shiva had married his daughter. He already had this envy towards him, but he brought it out publicly. And so there was Daksha's undoing. Very qualified, but pride before the fall. Daksha, in his arrogance, dared to offend Lord Shiva and his daughter, Parvati. She called Sati, and she will become known Dakshayani. We can call her name at this point would be Dakshayani. She gets other names later. She took offense at this, but others took offense. They left. There was this sacrifice was it became very full of tension. People cursed each other. Daksha, he made a curse. Shiva will never receive a portion of the sacrifice. And then other people cursed him as well. And this assembly was disbanded. Sometime later, Daksha, he said, okay, that didn't work out. Let's do this yagna again. And as a precaution, so as not to have such disruptions, we will consciously not invite Lord Shiva. And so when Dakshayani saw that everyone was dressed nicely, all the ladies were nicely dressed with their families going to this yagna, demigods, kings, they were all going to her father's place, but she couldn't go because her husband wasn't going. She was very sad. She asked Shiva to go. He says, no, I'm not going to go there. He's going to offend me. There's going to be more conflict. Better I stay away. And so she went by herself, although Shiva sent some others as a protective guard to escort her, but they stayed at a distance. And predictably, when she arrived, as Shiva had predicted, then Daksha ignored her. Others, they also ignored her because they didn't want to be on the bad side of Daksha. And aside from her mother, I think, and her sisters, others ignored her. But when she saw that there was no place for Shiva to be offered oblations, then she became angry. And she said that I am embarrassed to have this body born of this offender, Daksha. And so she gave up her body in that place by self-emulation. We called her as Sati, for giving up her body by fire, by meditative fire. And when this happened, then Shiva's associates, his who were there on protective duty, they felt compelled to punish Daksha. And so they came forward, severed Daksha's head, and they also punished other Brahmin associates of Daksha who made curses against Shiva's followers, and there was mayhem and disruption. This yagna was again disturbed terribly. It was not completed. The Brahmanists, they were so distressed, they went to Brahma to report. This is what happened. And Brahma, he said, well, that's really bad. What did you say? Did you defend Lord Shiva? No, we didn't. Did you apologize for the way Lord Shiva was affected? No, we followed Daksha. He was the leader of the yagna. So he led them to Kailash to apologize. And when they came before Shiva with humility, he was very quick to forgive them. He's famous as
Ashutosh.
Ashutosh, easily offended, but also easily pleased. So they begged for forgiveness for themselves. They also begged for forgiveness towards Daksha. And Shiva said that Daksha, I'm not angry. I have no anger whatsoever. Daksha was punished for something bad that he did. It's over. As far as I'm concerned, this is a non-issue. I have no anger in me anymore. They asked for Daksha's life to be restored. And so Shiva granted that they could take the goat from the sacrificial goat's head and place it on the head of Daksha's, the trunk of his body. And so Daksha's body, his life was restored mystically. When you see images of Daksha paintings, he's often illustrated with a goat's head and a human body. And Daksha resumed the sacrifice. What are we, third time now? Third time lucky, right? He resumed the sacrifice. Everyone was invited, including Lord Shiva. As a community, it's our topic today. As a community, they performed the sacrifice, and it was so pleasing to Lord Vishnu that he appeared personally in that sacrifice in a six-armed form to show his pleasure at the collaborative, cooperative association that was taking place, where everyone was supporting one another in performing Yagna by Vishnu. So, important lessons for us. Krishna has to be the center. When Daksha made himself the center, then things became chaotic. There was all kinds of trouble. The other is that we need good leadership, but it must be humble, qualified, but also humble leadership. That is another important lesson. The leader should also be thinking of themselves as a servant, not someone to be bowed to, and to take the place of Krishna, basically, which unfortunately happens repeatedly throughout history. And there needs to be humility. When mistakes are made, people need to earn forgiveness and humility. When mistakes are made, and there will be conflict, there will be tension, but there needs to be a mood of forgiveness. And then we're able to come together again in service and for the purpose for which we come together. And then Krishna shows his pleasure. In this instance, he came personally to show that he was pleased with the sacrifice. And we will see this happen again as we continue these 4 stories. We'll see another instance where Krishna will show his pleasure by being present at a sacrifice after much tension and conflict has been there. Let's go to our second story, which was Dhruva and Uttanapad. So Uttanapad is the nephew of he is the nephew of Daksha's parents. Yeah, so he's a cousin. They are family related. Yeah. I think Uttanapad will be a cousin to Daksha. Uttanapad Maharaj is he's the brother of Daksha's mother, or anyway, there is a family connection there. Uttanapad Maharaj ruled the earth after his parents, after Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, handed the rulership of the earth to him. Such a responsible position, and he was indeed a qualified king. But the lesson we can learn here is of the importance, if you are a leader, but a community member, is of inclusivity. Uttanapad's fault was when he excluded one of his sons or excluded one of his wives. He had two wives. It's another topic. He had two wives, Suditi and Suruchi. Suditi, the first queen, Suruchi, the younger and favored queen. And we know the story very famously. One day Uttanapad Maharaj is sitting on the throne, and Dhruva, the son of Suditi, attempts to climb on his father's lap. And he is obstructed by Suruchi, his stepmother. He says, no, you cannot sit on the throne. He's thinking he's sitting on his dad's lap, but she's seeing dad sitting on the throne. And I don't want this boy sitting there. And so she stopped him from climbing on his father's lap. She said, if you want to sit on the throne, that's my dad. If you want to sit on the throne, you have to take birth from my womb. But you haven't. That's not available to you. So Dhruva, he was very, very hurt by these words of Suruchi. He's breathing deeply. He goes to his mother, Suditi, with hot tears and very deep breaths. And he tells her what happened. And her response is a little surprising. She says, actually, what Suruchi said, what your mother, Suruchi, said is true. She is favored by the queen, by the king, and I'm not as favored. And so, but she also told him that by Krishna's mercy, anything's possible. He was determined. I want to sit on the throne. I want to sit on the throne, not just of my father, but even greater than my father or my grandfather. And so we know the story. He went to the forest. He met Narad Muni, who gave him a mantra, a very powerful mantra that appears how many times in the Bhagavatam? I beg your pardon? Yeah, the question was how many times does it appear in the Bhagavatam? At least twice. Right? It's at least twice. The beginning and then here in the fourth canto as well. We have this mantra appearing. And so Dhruva chants that mantra, he has darshan of Krishna, and he gives up his ambition for royal opulence. In fact, after seeing Krishna, he chastises himself. I'm a fool. I was chasing after the chaffs of wheat husk without appreciating the actual value that is Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Krishna had offered him, he told him, you will get the throne, you will rule for 10,000 years, and after that, we will give you my Ruftara, the pole star as well. And so Dhruva returns to the kingdom, and he's welcomed by his father. He's received as a hero. Uttanapad Maharaj has had a change of heart when Dhruva had left, and now he's grateful to see him again. Uttanapad Maharaj crowns Dhruva, makes him the ruler of the earth, and we see how and Vishnu had also said that Suruchi and Uttam, his stepbrother and stepmother, would die shortly, which happened. But when it happens, we see how Dhruva has no enmity towards his stepbrother Uttam. In fact, Prabhu mentioned it in the class. He had no enmity. In fact, he became enraged. He became angry when his brother was killed by some yakshas. And he went to avenge their death. He attacked the Yaksha kingdom, the Yaksha city, and was destroying them with his powerful astras until Lord Brahma told him, "What are you doing? You're killing these yakshas. They didn't do anything to you. One yaksha killed your one brother, and you are taking you're taking it out on all of these yakshas, and so you must desist." And so Dhruva, he took that instruction and he withdrew and returned to his kingdom, recognizing he had made a mistake, overcome with rage. So there, even a great person such as Dhruva also making a mistake, but reinforcing this idea of what I would say an important lesson of the story, inclusivity. Uttanapada Maharaj made a mistake excluding Suditi, excluding Dhruva. Dhruva, he's more spiritually realized that this fourth canto gives us all the contrasts to help us appreciate these points from two angles, what to do and what not to do. And finally, a nice ending to Dhruva's story is that he goes to Haridwar, where he performs devotional service, handing over the kingdom to his own son. And as the Vaikuntha Viman comes to take him to Vaikuntha, or to the abode of Hiranakashipu Vishnu, because he's going to the pole star, right? He says, I can't get on this plane because my mother, how could I go to the spiritual sky without my mother? And the Vishnu Dutas who had come to take him, they pointed to another Vaikuntha Viman and said, look, Dhruva, your mother, she's already going back to Godhead. And with that, then he also entered the Vaikuntha Viman. So any spiritual leader or community member, we must take this important point of inclusion. Dhruva wouldn't go back to Godhead without his mother. He had learned he was grateful anyway to his mother. She was like a guru to him, sending him to Narmuni. But we see the gratitude that's there, and we should all have a spirit of gratitude and appreciation and see one another as Krishna's devotees, Krishna's property, to be honored and respected and loved. And there's a community will be successful when there's that spirit and an attitude of inclusiveness rather than exclusion. When I tell these stories, I'm giving some reflections based on the theme of community. You might come up with others, so if you want to share those as well, you're welcome to do so. I'll go down to the third story, which was
Ritu Maharaj and Dana.
Ritu Maharaj and Veda. Another nice contrast, right? Fourth canto, contrasts in family relationships or contexts. Excuse me. Veda, he is a descendant of Dhruva Maharaj. So even in such an exalted family as Swayambhuva Manu and Uttanapada Maharaj and Dhruva, then some generations down, you get the cruel king Veda. Even as a child, he took pleasure in harming other children, in harming other living entities. He enjoyed inflicting pain on others. That was his pleasure, to see others distressed. And when he finally ascended to the throne, he forbade all the brahmanas to worship Vishnu. He said, why are you worshiping Vishnu? The king is a representative of God. Therefore, this is where you take Vedic teaching, you just twist it a little, and you end up with atheism. Therefore, rather than worshiping Vishnu, you must worship me. All your sacrifices, you rather than idam Vishnave, idam Namah, you say idam Vedaya or something of that nature, and you make your mantras and offerings to me. For you, I am God. You don't need to look anywhere else to other gods. So that was the character of this person sitting on the throne. The Brahmanas realized this is a most unqualified person. And so they chanted a mantra to kill him and remove him from the throne. Does anyone want to know what that mantra is? Could come in handy at some point. It's there in the Bhagavatam. You could look it up, or I could tell you right now, or you might be afraid that if I say it, something might happen in the room. We tried, but yeah, well, you're safe. I'm not a qualified Brahmin. My mantras are not that potent. Basically, they said it's a really easy mantra to remember. Once I tell you, you'll never forget it. They said, hum. That's it. That's you guys. You're all fine. Anyone? So with that mantra, they removed Vena from the throne. And then, Prabhupada translates it, they churned different parts of his body. They churned his arms. And by churning, they were able to generate a new king. King Prithu Maharaj. I don't know what that churning is, that process. Some might say it's bonding or something. Yes. An ancient example of clothing. You take some part of the body and regenerate life. Otherwise, yeah, it's an interesting idea that we find there in the Bhagavatam. So Prithu, he is the opposite of Vena. He ascends to the throne, and in his coronation, different devatas come with gifts to help him in his rule. Yamaraj gives him the scepter to rule wisely with justice and truth. I think Indra gives him a crown, Indra being the king of the gods. The rivers give him gifts, the sun, the moon, they all come forward and give him gifts. And there's a nice metaphor, I think, for the qualified ruler, the qualified leader, that when you lead with a sense of service and dharma, that the universe is also there to bring you gifts to help you in your rule. Those gifts were not given to Vena because he is a selfish, unqualified king. But Prithu, the qualified Dharma king, he also receives the assistance and the support of the devatas ruling the different elements and aspects of the universe as well. The bards, the reciters of glorifications, they sing Prithu's praises at his coronation. They say, you are great, you are the great ruler, you are powerful like the Supreme Lord. And Prithu, he says to them, dear respected bards, I haven't done anything yet. You are glorifying me, but I haven't yet ruled. I'm just now sitting on the throne. But those glorifications are taken as prophecy for what he will do. One thing he observed is that although he performed sacrifice, the citizens were still malnourished and they were not healthy. And so when he inquired as to what was going on, he understood that Prithvi, the earth, Bhumi, was withholding the resources, the opulences of the earth. And so he took up his bow and arrows to punish the earth for withholding her opulences, her bounties. And she did something very characteristic. When you read Bhagavatam, when Bhumi's in trouble, she has a strategy, a ploy that she uses, and that is What's she?
She goes to Brahma.
She goes to Prabhu. Okay, yeah, he asks for help.
Takes the form of a cow.
She takes the form of a cow. It's like, look, you must protect the cow. Of the cow. Of the cow. So yeah, she does this a few times in the Bhagavatam. She takes the form of a cow and asks for protection. She shows Parikshit, I have a cow that's being beaten by Kali. And she, in the 10th canto, she takes the form of a cow and approaches Brahma and says, kings are appearing on earth, demons are appearing on the earth, and the families of kings, and they're taking it over. And so when Prithu took his bow and arrows, she became a cow. And Prithu nonetheless came for a chase, followed her far and wide, and then finally she turned around and said, in your previous incarnations, you always protected me. As Varahadev, you lifted me up from the ocean and gave me shelter, gave me protection. Why now are you so angry and chasing me with weapons to kill me? And he asked, well, why are you withholding the opulences of the earth? The citizens are hungry and malnourished. You're not doing your duty. And so she told him that she will release her opulences, but there is a need for, he said, I've also done sacrifice, because that's the contract in the Gita. Krishna also mentions, when there is sacrifice, then there will be bountiful opulence as well. The mention of the cow is there as well, the Kaladuk. And so he says, we're doing sacrifice, but you're not giving opulence. And she says, I was holding the opulences back because of Veda. Veda was such an impious, unqualified ruler. He stopped sacrifices, and without sacrifices, I'm not giving my opulences. So an important lesson there for leaders, but also for community. We said Krishna has to be the center of the community. We said that in relation to the Daksha story. And here that idea is reinforced. When there is Dharma, when Krishna is the center, sacrifices being made to Krishna, then that also brings auspiciousness and bounty, opulence as well. And so when that's not there, then Bhumi Devi herself withholds, the devatas withhold those blessings for society or for the community. So she told him how to bring out those opulences. She said, you have each group come, and with a vessel, they can milk me, and I will give them what they need. And so under Prithu's guidance, then different divisions came forward. The demigods came forward. They made Indra as their cow, and they milked her with sacrifice, and they got Amrita. And the Brahmins, they came forward, and they made Brihaspati their calf. Sorry, cow, did I say cow? They made Brihaspati their calf, and Brihaspati was able, by Bhumi, then release the opulence for the Brahmanas, putting in the Vedas. I can't remember specifically. Even the demons came. They made Prahlada their calf, and what did demons be interested in? Yeah, they got some alcohol. They got what they wanted. They got some booze. Like this, human society came forward. Every group, they sent forth their representative. And so we can also learn something from this. There is there was a pot. They had to have their special pot to receive, and there needs to be a person of character. When we have dharma or character, and then we bring our vessel, our sacrifice, then there is blessings are received in that as well. And the ruler, Prithu here is the ruler, so he's overseeing this milking or this sacrifice. the ruler has to make facility for each group to be able to, or the different varnas, the different ashrams, the different divisions of society, to get what they need to fulfill their needs and desires. And so Prithu facilitates that, and in this way he brings auspiciousness and nourishment to all the different divisions of not just earthly society, but to the world itself. And the earth was so pleased, she became Prithu's daughter, and she got the name Prithvi. We also refer to Goddess Earth as Prithvi. She's the daughter of Prithu Maharaj, the just ruler. After these great accomplishments establishing his rule, Prithu Maharaj decided to perform 100 Ashvamedha yajnas. And he was having these yajnas performed along the Ganges River. Who else do we know who performed 100 Ashvamedha yajnas? Indra. In fact, that's how Indra got his position as the ruler of the heavens by performing 100 yajnas. So when he heard what Prithu was trying to do, he became edgy, he became worried, and he decided to obstruct the yajna, particularly the 100th sacrifice. What did he do? He stole the sacrificial horse. He stole the sacrificial horse by coming in the guise of different sannyasis, false sannyasis, Mayavad atheistic sannyasis. And because he was in the guise of a sannyasi, people just let him walk through into the sacrificial yajna arena. But then when he got his opportunity, he thought, take that horse and fly away with it. This went on many, many times. Prithu Maharaj had his son stationed to protect the horse. But when he would see the sannyasi, he bowed down. And the Maharaj, he bowed down and then he looked up again, so the horse is gone. And then, so this went on over and over again. Prithu Maharaj eventually became very angry, took his sword, and he said, I will kill Indra myself. And the Brahmana says, no, you can't do that. You have to stay here. You're performing the yajna. You can't go and kill people while doing the yajna. You must stay here and remain pure. And they said, but don't worry. We have mantras. We can kill Indra for you. We will pronounce a mantra and we will call Indra from the heavens and we will make him fall into this sacrifice. This happens later in the Bhagavatam as well, at the sacrifice of Janvijay. So Indra, this is a problem that he's faced from time to time. Brahmins calling him into a sacrificial fire. So Indra's being called down, thrown into the sacrificial fire, and it's a disaster. Imagine, like if there was an assassination attempt on the president of the country, it would be a national emergency. So here there's an assassination attempt on the ruler of heaven, the ruler of all the demigods. It's a universal catastrophe. And so Brahma, he's made aware of this very quickly. And he comes down, I think does he bring Vishnu with him? He comes down to Prithu's sacrifice and he says, you can't kill Indra. It's not right. You could be the one who did 99 sacrifices. I understand this is really important. And you made a promise that you would do it. And for any person of their word to not fulfill their word is a very serious thing. Any of us, we know it's important to keep our commitments. It's important to keep our word. Now brothers asking Prithu not to keep his word. It's a big ask. But when Prithu Maharaj is asked by Brahma, he says, I understand. I want to complete the 100th sacrifice. I will be Prithu who did 99 sacrifices, and we will let Indra be the one who did 100 sacrifices. And so in that spirit, he forgave Indra, and Krishna was very pleased. He in fact came with Indra as well. And he told Prithu Maharaj, I'm very pleased with you. He said, please forgive Indra. He's made a mistake. And so in all of this, although Prithu didn't complete his 100 yagnas, actually he was the winner. The one who did less actually did more. Because what's the purpose of sacrifice? To please Vishnu. Who was Vishnu most pleased with? He was most pleased with Prithu Maharaj, as opposed to Indra, who had done so much scheming and stealing and cheating. And so Vishnu came and he was personally present before Prithu Maharaj to tell him he was pleased. And that is the ultimate for any performer of sacrifices, to actually have the Lord come personally to say, I am pleased. That is the ultimate perfection. And so what is Vishnu pleased with? He's pleased with this forgiveness. He's pleased with the humility. He's pleased with this cooperative spirit as well. Brahma has asked Prithu, for the sake of the universe, please don't do the 100th sacrifice. And so taking that into account, Prithu Maharaj has agreed not to do so. And then Vishnu, and then that makes Indra himself humble. He apologizes. Indra apologizes, Prithu forgives, there are nice relations, and Vishnu is pleased. So we also learn here that Vishnu is pleased by these cooperative relations. Remember I told you about the end of Daksha's Yagna? How it ended with this very cooperative spirit, and Vishnu was pleased and he came personally to the sacrifice. The same story repeating many, many chapters later. At the end of Prithu's sacrifice, Vishnu is coming and saying, I am pleased by your cooperation. Yes, they're cooperating to do a sacrifice. Ostensibly, that's the thing that pleases Vishnu. But what he's actually pleased with is the cooperative spirit in the performance of the sacrifice. That's an important lesson for us in our communities. When we're serving Krishna, sometimes in the name of serving Krishna, we might quarrel with each other. We might exclude one another. We might want to dominate and control each other. But what Krishna actually appreciates when we are all in the name of service, but what Krishna really appreciates is when we are serving together with humility and forgiveness and respect. Then Krishna is pleased. And the last story we will tell, fourth story from the fourth canto, the 9 remaining, is of the Prachetas and King Rachinavarhi. This is also a nice story of friendship and cooperation. The Prachetas were 10 brothers. 10 brothers who were sons of a king who was a descendant of Prithu. This is all the same family that we're discussing. So a descendant of Prithu Maharaj is a king named Rachinavarhi. He has 10 sons that are collectively called the Prachetas. They're all Vaishnavas, Bhagavatam says. They're all devotees of Narayan. They're all very well trained in Shastra and in Dharma, and they have good character. And their father tells them one day, I want you to marry and have children. And in order to do that, to prepare yourself, you should go and perform some austerity and get Krishna's blessings. Also, this is also an important lesson of the Bhagavatam, that when kings want to marry and have children, there is also a preparation. It's not just find someone who looks cute and marry or not and have children, but prepare yourself with the right consciousness and the right attitude and invoke blessings to beget qualified progeny. And so the Prachetas, they take their father's guidance and they start marching towards or walking out of the city to a rural environment to perform meditation and prayer and sacrifice to Krishna. And along the way, they come across a sacred lake. Anyone know which lake it was? My mind is saying Viddu Sarovar, but that's up in the Himalayas. Yeah, it was. Yeah. They come to a sacred lake filled with lotus flowers, and this was the abode of Lord Shiva. And so they offer their obeisances to Lord Shiva, and Shiva comes out of the water, and he sees these 10 brothers, very effulgent, very qualified, well-educated, well-versed, but what he sees among them is friendship, which is nice. Yeah. He says, I appreciate your friendly relations among one another, and I want to help you to beget good children. I know you're going to Shiva, he knows everything. I know you're going to perform sacrifice to Vishnu to get qualified children. I'm going to teach you a mantra that Brahma taught his sons when he wanted them to have good children. It is in fact a mantra that Brahma himself chanted in his creative process to beget good progeny. And so that mantra is there in the Bhagavatam. It is called the Rudra Gita, the song of Rudra, the song of Lord Shiva. But it is a prayer to Lord Vishnu, glorifying the Chatur Vyuha, Vasudeva, Shankarshana, Prajumna, and Aniruddha. These are 4 principles of karya, of action. And so that's the mantra. If any of you are interested in creative processes, you can look up that mantra. And so the Prachetas, they took that mantra from Lord Shiva, they continued to the sea, and they entered into the water, not the sea, a lake. They entered into the water. They thought the underwater would be a better place for their meditation because, well, there's no distraction. Unless you're so many money, you got distracted. That's another story. Underwater, less distraction. So they decided to meditate under there for 10,000 years. Yes, they are focused and determined. After 10,000 years, they came up out of the water and they couldn't recognize Christ anymore. Like, what's happened? Anyone know what had happened?
There are too many trees.
There were too many. The whole earth had been covered over by trees. The trees had overgrown the earth. And this made the Prachetas angry because everyone has a quota. Prabhupada speaks about this in his Ishopanishad commentary to verse 1. Everyone has their quota. The trees had taken more than their quota. They had overgrown their boundaries. They hadn't left space for anyone else, right? Humans, animals, there's a lot of us on earth that need to share these resources. And so the trees had overstepped their boundaries, and these Prachetas, they're also the lotus sages meditating, they're also rulers, they're kshatriyas. And so with their yogic power, they opened their mouths and fire emanated, and they started to burn down those trees. But then, they overstepped their boundary. Trees need some space as well, right? So sometimes we correct a problem by creating another problem. And so Brahma, he came and said, no, stop. You're burning down too many trees. That's what happens with anger. We need you to pacify your anger. And so Soma, the moon god, he had a daughter named Marisha. And he said, you've been doing austerities to have qualified progeny. Here, take my daughter. Take my daughter in marriage. And so the 10 Prachetas married Marisha. That's also interesting. But it would demonstrate the principle of cooperation, right? So polygamy, one man, many wives. Bhagavatam also has some examples of polyandry, the other way around. Draupadi in the Five Pandavas is a famous example, but here's a much more ancient example with one Marisha. She marries 10 Prachetas, and they have a child, and this child is very interesting. The child who will inherit the throne from them. Does anyone know? This is so interesting who their child is. Their child is Daksha. What? Wasn't Daksha the first chapter of this fourth canto? Now we're in chapter 31, and you're saying Daksha. Yeah, that's the thing. Daksha's reborn. Cycle of samsara. So another very important lesson that Vaishnava Prahlada. It is a great obstacle to spiritual progress. Although Daksha had been forgiven, nonetheless, he's been born again now as a king, from a brahmana now to a king. And the other interesting story with Daksha is that the line will actually end with him. Fifth canto starts with, we need another king. We need Uttanapad's brother to come in now. Priyavrata Maharaj to start another line, because Daksha, he wasn't able to, I mean, he had lots of sons, but they all took sannyas. That's another story. And then his other offspring were daughters, so lots of sages. But as far as someone who's going to inherit the throne, he wasn't able to pass the throne on. And when Daksha, he has these many sons, and Brahma Narad Muni preaches to them. The Haryashvas and the Shabalashvas and Narad Muni, 10,000 at a time, 1,000 at a time. And Narad Muni, he's thinking, well, I've had a lot of success preaching to these sons of Daksha. In fact, I've had a lot of success with this family, just, I was able to preach to Dhruva Maharaj as well and make him devoted. But then Daksha, he really doesn't seem to be, I can't help him. And so maybe I'll go preach to him now. I preached to Dhruva, I preached to Priyavrata, I preached to all these Haryashvas, Shabalashvas. And so Narad Muni presented himself before Daksha. Daksha says, I curse you. I curse you that you'll never be able to stay in any place for more than a couple of days, a few days. Prabhupada said, I also inherited that curse. And Narad Muni is thinking, okay, he's really angry. He cursed me. Surely he's going to regret it now. Like, okay, he was angry, he saw me, he cursed. But now he's going to be thinking, well, I made a big mistake. I just cursed Narad Muni. And so Narad Muni thought, rather than leave, I should hang around. Like, I should stay here for when he expresses regret. And then I can help him. But it didn't happen. Daksha was getting more and more angry. And Narad Muni thought, just see the effects of Vaishnava Aparat. He offended Lord Shiva, and that mentality, yes, he said, I'm sorry, and Shiva forget, but the mentality is still, that lingers, it's still there, and he's made upright here as well. And so that's the warning to us all. through all of these stories, we've learned about the importance of having a center, Krishna in the center of sacrifice. We've learned about the importance of qualified leadership. We've learned about the problem of ego, the wanting to make ourselves the center. We've learned about the importance from Tonapad and Dhruva of inclusion. We've learned from Prithu Maharaj about the importance of sacrifice and the importance of providing for each group to be able to fulfill their needs within the broader community. Also, forgiveness and having Krishna in the center, that being the more important point, even to perfectly completing some sacrifice or a specific number of sacrifices. We've learned about the importance of friendship among brothers and collaboration or among community members. But then in it all, we have this warning. Be careful of Vaishnava uprising, because that can undermine and ruin everything. And so there we are, some reflections on community from the Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically the fourth canto. And we are 5 minutes over time, so we will conclude that. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Televitam Navadvip ki jai, Itai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol.
Right.